So, welcome. Welcome to the inaugural WILD Summit, Women Inspiring Leadership Development. This event, I've heard the statement over and over today, was a nugget of an idea that came about a year ago. I'm Cindy Carrillo. I have the absolute pleasure for the last year to be the chair of all things wild over the last year. This has been a wild year. It did begin with a nugget, and it's something for those of you who don't know. Nothing like this existed more than a year ago, and we were sitting at a meeting, I remember, for the Women's Council, which is an organization that came about 2 years ago from the Deming Center for Entrepreneurship at the Leeds School of Business at the University of Colorado. And we thought that there was a time and a place, we had hit it, that we needed an opportunity to be able to bring women together from all walks of professional life and plug them in so that they could connect with young women and men who were students at the university so that they could find women role models, women mentors, so that they could interact, they could connect, and quite frankly, so that it wouldn't be a surprise for any of them to go out into the world of business and be surprised to see a woman in a leadership position. So we met about a year ago, and our goal at that meeting, because it was our year anniversary of starting the Women's Council, was to try and get 100 women in the room. And we thought if we could identify 100 women from all walks of professional life, get them in the room and say, would you be willing to spend a little bit of time with students? Would you mentor? Would you develop some internships? Would you be willing to go into a class and judge a business plan competition? Or speak about what your past is and your experience and your wisdom is about how you lead? And we got, without blinking, 100 women in the room. And now we're sitting with 100 women in the room wondering, what the heck do we do with them? And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, we got to get something done. So we came up with this idea. If we could get 100 women in the room, maybe we could get 2 or 3 times that number of women in the room, and maybe we could invite a whole bunch of students to come, and then we could talk about really exciting things and make these connections. Well, I'm so proud to tell you, we don't have 2 times the number of women in this room. We got 4 times the number of women in this room. And when we thought, when all these women, these 100 women, these professional women sitting in the room, and we're saying to ourselves, do you think students will come? Do you think the students would be interested in interacting with professional women? And we thought, we got to give this a chance. We've got to try to do this. Well, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to ask all of the students who took the time out of their days, and you're excused from class, by the way, to stand so that all the women in the room can see our students. First of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you, students, for being here. Now that the students stood up, no excuses. You know who they are, you know where they are. So as the professionals in the room, it's our responsibility to mingle. It's our responsibility to connect with them. Seek them out. They're new at this. We're not. Make sure that those connections happen. Students, time to step up. Now we're here, and we're here for you. So throughout the day, there's opportunities to get together. There's lunch discussions that will happen. There's plenty of time to network. Professionals, it's our time to pull out our business cards, make those connections. Afterwards, have coffee. Go to lunch. I'm the queen of going to lunch. Go to lunch. Go to breakfast. Have coffee. Whatever it takes, make those connections and open yourselves up, because this is our future. These people are our future. So what we're here to do today, the purpose of being here, is to make these connections and make ourselves available both ways. But it's also to have those discussions. So I'm absolutely thrilled that when we were trying to develop this first event, we were thinking, how do we do this in a way that focuses on business, allows us to really go out into the community and identify some amazing women leaders, and do it in a format that allows for the exchange of information. So today's program has been designed in a way that allows for you to hear the inspirational stories from an amazing group of women leaders that we've brought in for you in 5 different panels. And we decided to do it a little bit differently today, in that usually when you go to a conference, there's a whole catalog of meetings and panels and workshops that you could go to. We thought, let's just go and focus on 5 and pick the cream of the crop. And so we've gone out to do that for you today. So you will have the opportunity to pick a panel to attend this morning, and then we're going to repeat those 5 panels this afternoon. And so I'd like our panelists to stand up, and we want to acknowledge them because they're giving up an entire day to be with us to share everything. So are our panelists in the room? They're probably all, there they are, get up there. Thank you. There'll be plenty of opportunity to talk to them. So, and then finally what we wanted to be able to do is really to engage a broad audience. We were looking for a real mix of women across the professional spectrum, but also across the age continuum. And I think we've been able to do that. We also need to acknowledge one other population that is in this room. Our goal was to try and bring as many women into this room as we possibly could. But we also have a smattering of men. And we wanted a smattering of men. So thank you, gentlemen, for being brave and coming into this room today. We love having you here. Let's see. Can I get my slides up? Thank you. Whoops. Okay. So I was trying to think about what to talk to you about today to sort of set up the nature of the summit. And I thought, let's focus in on just a few words of wisdom. Because I think when we talk about leadership, as you saw from the film, we all come to the table with all kinds of ideas about what leadership means to us. And when I really started to think about how would I define leadership, I'm not that smart, so I started doing some research about what other people had said. And so I picked out a couple of quotes that really spoke to me for whatever reason, and I wanted to share them with you today. So the first quote that I found is from Geraldine Ferraro. Some leaders are born women. And I read this and I went, well, duh. And then I thought, not everybody gets that, but some leaders are born women. In fact, it's actually a lot of leaders are born women. Did you know that today there are over 9 million women-owned businesses in the United States, representing nearly 40% of all businesses? Pretty amazing. Women business owners employ 35% more people than all of the Fortune 500 companies combined. We got a lot of women leaders. If Geraldine Ferraro was alive, I'd say, you might want to amend that quote. Hard to lead a cavalry charge if you think you look funny on a horse. I got to tell you, I read hundreds of quotes about leadership, and most of them are written by men. Most of them were spoken by men. And just as a little aside here, one of the things that really struck me was that most of the quotes from men about leadership had to do with war, battles, or something to do with throwing a ball. Who knew? But as I looked at this one, I thought, it's the only quote that I picked out from a man, but it really spoke to me. Because I think as women, sometimes we don't see ourselves up on the horse. Sometimes we're concerned that we don't belong there. And I'll tell you, 85% of Americans are really, really comfortable with women assuming leadership positions. So we need to get up on the horse. Unfortunately, women only occupy about 15% of the top executive positions in Fortune 500 companies. And we only sit on about 5% of those boards. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get up on the damn horse. What kind of message does it send to our young women and men if they're not seeing women in the top levels of all of these companies? What message are we saying? What are we sending to them that says to them, hey, it's surprising. What we really want to strive for here, what my goal is, ultimately, with the Women's Council, with anything that we do at the summit, is get to the point where it's unnecessary for us to have the conversation because it isn't press-worthy. It isn't something that, well, a woman becomes the CEO of a major Fortune 500 company and it's a headline. It should be expected. It should be boring. It should be ordinary. So it's about damn time we get up on the horse. I love this quote. I've, over the course of the last year, focusing on this topic of women in leadership, and here we are trying to inspire leadership, and there have been a number of occasions where I've heard, you have to get to a certain point in your life, a certain age, and then you can lead. It has nothing to do with age. If you look around the room today, we've got people of all ages in all leadership positions. We've got Megan Bush here today, who will be up here later for to talk to us over lunch. And let me tell you, this woman is president of the national of our chapter for the National MBA Women's Group, and she's in a leadership position, and she's an MBA candidate. She's a leader. We've got a young woman who started a company, Sarah Shoup, who graduated from the university a number of years ago, had a great idea, and started her own company called University Parent. We've got a woman in the audience who I think worked for, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's over 20 years, learning everything she could possibly learn about the recruitment industry, and then decided, you know what, I could do it differently and I can do it better. So Kathleen Quinn Votaw started her own company, Talent Trust. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And then we've got one of our Women's Council members who's also on our panel today, who is also up on this screen. Woman gets around. She's the CEO of Rudy's, and she's been in corporate life forever and just decides, 10, 15 years. And now she's assumed all these leadership positions, and she's decided to start a new company for providing that give back, that advice to young women. She's going to share her wisdom. She's going to share her inspiration, her knowledge, her experience, and her humor. You want to go hear Jane today. And she started a new blog and business called Jane Knows. So, pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. And then you've got, the oldest person here, me, who started a company 25, 30 years ago, ran that thing for 22 years, sold it, decided to go and live on a ranch for a while. Do you know I just ordered my first ever chicken coop? Who knew what you can do in life? And then this opportunity comes up, and then I get to be leading that charge, getting up on the horse, to be able to create something as inspirational as the Wild Summit. It isn't about age. Another one of my favorites. In politics, if you want anything said, ask a man. If you want anything done, ask a woman. Now, really, with only 18% of our U.S. representatives and 20% of our senators women, does anybody in this room question why nothing's getting done in Washington? Seriously. And then finally, if you're a member of the Women's Council, and if you're not, there's going to be opportunities for you. But we started off a couple of years ago with this concept that when you get a group of women together, you can't help but get shit done. Yeah, this is about getting shit done. So, and I will tell you, what has been just phenomenal for me throughout the months leading up to this was that as we were going through the planning, and a lot of people talked about and worked on this event, at various and sundry times, people would come up to me and go, "Yeah, guess what? We're getting shit done." And I'd say, "Yeah, we are." So with that, I'd like to introduce some people that really helped. They didn't help. They did it. They got this shit done. And I want to begin first with my unbelievable leadership team. This is a group of women who met on a monthly basis for over a year, pulled committees together, inspired their committees and the people who worked with them to get everything done for the year. And I think it's important that we acknowledge all of them. And as I call everybody's names, it won't take all that long, but there are a few of you. I'd really like you to stand, and I'd like you to remain standing, okay? First, Amy Lieberman, who chaired our marketing and communications. Julie Immig, who pulled the whole program together. Julie Herzog, who is amazing as our underwriting chair. Terry Dupuy and Lisa Helm, our co-chairs of logistics. They pulled this whole thing together. I'd also like to recognize Carol Frank, who is our current chair of the Women's Council. Greatest supporter. Allison Peters and Paul Jurdy from the Deming Center. We could not have done any of this without your amazing support and help. Terry Douglas, our CEO of Catapult Public and Investor Relations. This is our PR guru genius who got us all the press that we got. And then we had a bunch of volunteers behind the scene who really, we could not do this without. We had Liz Coker, Tara Beaton, Andy Blackwell, they're probably all out working, Laura Lee Hullinghorst, our volunteer coordinator, Megan Bush, who I mentioned before, Alicia Merrill, Amy Graham, who headed up our registration program, Joni Klippert, Nicole Gretchen, and David Depew. Could all of you stand so we can acknowledge you? Then for our programs, in order to pull these programs and these panels together, we needed, stand back up. I'm not done with you. Whoever was standing, stand back up. You have to keep standing. I'd like to introduce to you the chairs of our producers, as we like to call them, of all of our panels. Darla Sheath, Healthcare. George DeRicio, Social Ventures and Sustainability. Fran Ryan, Education. Sue Nagel, Marketing and Communication. And Jan West, Natural Foods and Products. Could you all stand? Thank you. Keep standing. Anybody else in the room who attended a program meeting, who got on a conference call, who asked a sponsor to sponsor us, who stuffed a swag bag, I don't care what you did, please stand. It took an army. Please, everybody stand. Thank you. Thank you. Now you could all rest. It's an amazing concept to try and go out there and pull an army of people together to get shit done. But we can't just do it with all the hours. We really, really, really needed the help of our sponsors. Imagine going out 4 or 5 months ago and saying to a bunch of businesses, look, we've really never done this before. But we think we're onto something. We think that we've sort of flicked a nerve here. So we'd like you to support us, because in order to pull an event like this together, we have to underwrite it in order to make the cost at a point where people can attend, in order to keep the cost to the point where students can come here today and they're willing to have some skin in the game. And these sponsors put their faith in us. These sponsors said, you know, we think you're onto something as well. So I'd like to thank our sponsors, beginning with our illustrious Big Cat sponsor, Ogilvy and Mather. Thank you so much. Our platinum sponsors, Rudy's Organic Bakery and Comcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our gold sponsors, White Wave, Julie Herzog at Shushat Herzog and Brenman Attorneys, Catapult Public and Investor Relations. Thank you all. Our silver sponsors included First National Wealth Management, Jane Knows, the Millstone Evans Group of Raymond James, Cafe Sonora, Metzger Associates, and the 29th Street Flatiron Crossing. Thank you. And last but not least, we had over a dozen bronze sponsors. These companies stepped up and brought not just, see, the sponsors didn't just give us money. They sent people. They gave us that kind of support. And our bronze sponsors included the Sterling Rice Group, Stephanie Bruno Wealth Advisors, Camp Bow Wow, Carol Frank of SDR Ventures, Skate City, Bamboobies, Vermilion, First Western Trust, Cliff Bar, First Bank, Wells Fargo, O'Brien Braun, the University of Denver's Women's College Entrepreneur Center, J.P. Morgan Chase, Holland and Hart, Cooley, Celestial Seasonings, and last but not least, the Leeds School of Business. That's a heck of a list of names of sponsors.